beautiful humans. I hope you're having a positive day. So we're going to start off with getting packed up for my wisdom teeth surgery. I'm heading out to my parents' house to have a day or two of recovery there, so that way I am looked after if I need something. I am all prepped and ready to go, so we're going to get packed up, and then you're going to see me driving to my parents' house, and then you're going to see my recovery and all of my thoughts and truth about having your wisdom teeth removed. So I have all 4 of my wisdom teeth. This one is contracting. I haven't had any pain yet. They've been telling me for a long time to get it taken care of, and I just haven't done it. So I am really looking forward to having it taken care of, so that way I can start my journey to fixing my teeth, straightening them out. That's something that I've been wanting to do for really my entire life. So I'm very excited to get closer to that and finally get this checked off of my list. So I'm in my PJs and I'm ready to start this journey. I hope you enjoy. While I was packing, I continuously looked at my list to make sure that I didn't forget anything important. I also tried to show you the book that I'm currently reading, which is Thinner, Leaner, Stronger by Michael Matthews. It talks all about the myths and the real science behind weight loss and things that you can do to help your body be all nourished and work out better. Of me right after my surgery. Of course, my cheeks are a little poofy, but I have the gauze in my mouth as well. I am 3 days post-op my wisdom teeth surgery. It is a little hard to talk, but not very bad at all. But I just wanted to go over how I'm feeling, how each day has gone. First things first is when I came to my mom's the night before, I stayed the night and got everything kind of prepped and ready in my space to make sure that I would be as comfortable as possible for after the surgery. I could just hop into bed and have everything ready for me. And the morning of, I took a shower, so that way I am all good and taken care of for the few days, afterwards, that I wouldn't really be up to taking care of myself. So basically, I went to the dentist's office and I had some questions. They didn't really reach out to me about those questions. I didn't think about it, being nervous. I didn't have the best experience overall with my dentist. My biggest thing with them was I didn't feel very comfortable. I felt kind of rushed, and every experience will absolutely be different. So I'm just sharing my experience and how everything went. But basically they had me go in and I took a seat, and as soon as I sat down, they started bombarding me with multiple nurses, putting cords and sticky stuff on me. They weren't explaining what anything was. They put the tube underneath my nose and I saw the gas tank. They also had an IV in my arm, but they did it where you take blood. So I'm not sure if it was an IV or gas. I'm not sure if there was any stitches that they did. They didn't tell me I had to come back. They didn't explain very much of anything to me. And they did know that I was nervous, being my first time, my first surgery. And they just didn't really give me that time to adjust and know what things were, and they just rushed into everything. So my anxiety started to get pretty bad as soon as I sat down. They asked me a couple questions of my line of work. Once I was done getting all the stuff hooked up to me and I had the heart monitor going, and about a minute later, I would say, my eyes got a little heavy and instantly out. I opened my eyes afterwards and it just felt like a blink, which was very interesting, and I didn't sleep well the night before, so that hour or so felt pretty good to sleep. But when I woke up, I asked the nurse a few questions, something along checking to see if there was gauze in my mouth because I couldn't feel it. My whole lower face was numb, and if I was done a couple of times because I wasn't completely coherent that I was done and that we had been through it. I was pretty coherent after the fact, and they helped me jump into my dad's truck, and he took me to my parents' house, and he helped me get out of the truck, but I walked myself into the bedroom. I wasn't dizzy or feeling like I was gonna fall or anything, so I was pretty awake afterwards. So then it starts with the recovery. So I laid inside the bed and got comfortable. I had all of my stuff out, watched some Disney movies and some things to keep me happy and just relax. It took about 8 hours after the surgery was over for me to get my feelings back in my face completely. So most of it was gone after a good amount of hours passed, but basically the bottom lip area, mainly right here in this whole section, was numb, and I was looking forward to starting to eat and take some medicine. It was pretty painful, but it wasn't unbearable. It just was very uncomfortable. So after about 9 hours after surgery, that was when I was able to take some Advil. Basically knocked out all the pain at that point. Every 4 hours I would take 2 Advil. They're 200 milligrams each, and that helped subside the pain enough for me to be comfortable. And then 11 hours later, I was finally able to take out the gauze where I was not bleeding a lot. It was very minimal, so I was able to actually drink some ramen broth, which was great to get something in my stomach. So 11 hours plus the 8 hours of fasting beforehand that I couldn't eat anything. So I was very malnourished and needed something in my stomach. Luckily, the meds did not make me very nauseous without having anything in my stomach. But I realized just how quickly it was fairly difficult for me to not suck at all to prevent any dry sockets. So I learned pretty quickly just to very carefully swallow, and basically the trick I used was putting my tongue up onto the roof of my mouth when I would swallow, so that way I wasn't making any sucking or pressure in my mouth that could cause any issues. So on to the second day. Did not sleep very much at all. I was up every 4 hours or so, had a good hour of not sleeping in the middle of that, and I was feeling pretty sore, so I took some Advil again, and it didn't really seem to help very much, so I was happy to be getting my prescriptions that day. They gave me amoxicillin to prevent any kind of infection. They gave me some 800 milligram ibuprofen to take for pain regularly, so instead of taking my Advil, I would take that. They also gave me a mouth rinse for keeping any infections away as well, and just making sure that those holes were sterilized. You can't swish and move around your mouth. Just kind of held it in my mouth and moved my head around. The mouthwash made it where it's a little more sensitive afterwards. You're supposed to do that 2 times a day, and then you can't eat or drink up to 2 hours afterwards. So just to make sure that it's doing its job, it's not getting washed out with anything. And then they also prescribed me a narcotic, something that's, of course, can be very dangerous. I decided not to take that. They said that it was very last resort if you were in a lot of pain and stuff to take it, so I decided to opt out of that. I'm not usually one to take a lot of medicine. I like to try to get things done naturally, but of course with surgery and making sure there's no infections, I want to do it right. I would say that the second day was my roughest just because you have all of the soreness, you have the lack of sleep and malnourishment that's all kind of catching up to you. You're laying in bed all day the first day trying to relax and take care of yourself. So somebody like me, I like to get up and move around. My body doesn't like to sit still too long. So I wanted to walk around a bit, and it's difficult obviously to eat. So opening my mouth too much could be hard. Talking could be hard. So by the end of the night, I ended up getting a little dizzy. I ended up getting a little nauseous, and I just wasn't feeling great. I really didn't have a lot of swelling in my opinion. I think that there's a little bit on the cheeks. It's kind of hard, and that would be why I've been using ice packs for the first few days. They feel really good, really soothing. I definitely suggest having ice packs. They help a lot. The first day I was really only able to drink ramen broth and water, and then second day was pudding, any jello. I started to try to brush my teeth, basically focused on just the front ones and inside the front ones, so not getting too close to the extraction points, and that was difficult. I didn't use any toothpaste because I didn't want to irritate the holes, so just trying to let it fall out and dry myself up with the tissues. So I was also a little sneezy. I kept feeling myself needing to sneeze. I have allergies, so first few days obviously it was hard to do that, and I put my finger up, pushing up against to stop that sneeze, and that worked really good. So I haven't sneezed until today, day 3. I've been using a lot of chapstick to make sure my lips don't get chapped. Being in Arizona, it gets really dry. Even on day 3, I'm still having a little bit of blood, and that can make you nauseous, so just make sure that you're drinking and eating what you can. It's very difficult to keep yourself nourished, so I definitely suggest getting some pre-made protein drinks, which I ended up getting after the surgery because I didn't think about that on my grocery list. So I got that afterwards, and I got some Froyo, which felt really good. It's very simple and smooth to go down your throat. And finally, day 3, I was able to eat some mashed up refried beans, basically making sure there was no big beans in there. Added a little bit of milk to soften it up as well, cooking it on the stovetop, a little bit of cheese to add some flavor, and that felt really good to get something more hearty, more nutritious in me as well. It's very important to try to stay hydrated. Another thing that's happened day 2 and day 3, my glands are swollen. So the first day it was pretty hard to swallow. It just hurt pretty bad, specifically on my right side, which again, this is the one that was contracted, so it does hurt the most, and I expected that. The bottom ones in general seem to hurt the most. I don't really feel much on the top. I would say that the recovery feeling for soreness is as if you got punched in all 4 sections, and so it's just sore to the touch. Obviously touching right here would be a little painful, so that's what the ice helps with as well. But having these swollen glands is a little hard to swallow, but nothing too bad, and I just make sure to take my pills regularly to keep down any inflammation. Today, day 3, I tried to have some applesauce. It hurts a little bit to have, so I didn't have that. So I'm feeling a lot better with day 3. My face hurts with all of the talking, and it is time for my medicine. But just wanted to give an overview of how I feel, how it all went. It really just depends, of course, on each person, how they take pain. I was able to manage mine fairly well. It was not as bad as I anticipated, which is great. And I'll be sure to share my list of everything that I packed. I did a lot of research beforehand, so I'm thankful for not being a person that relies on people because, like I said, the dentist didn't really tell me much. The only thing that they told me was to fast for 8 hours prior and to have my designated driver with me to bring me home after the anesthesia. So I'm glad that I researched and got some information from others. So that's why I'm giving you this video, so that way hopefully I can help you prepare for yours. Also, it's very uncomfortable to look up or look down. Basically just it's putting pressure on your face and your head. so it's causing a little bit more strain on you. Hopefully these lists will help you. These are my packing list, my notes from the research I did before surgery, so basically before I drove to my parents' house, and then my shopping list of things to try. So biggest thing is just making sure that you are as comfortable as possible. You don't have a bunch of makeup and jewelry and tight clothes on when you go for your surgery. You keep your head raised. You don't sleep with gauze in your mouth. You have extra gauze and chapstick, and ice packs are a big one. Some things for the notes was just making sure no seeds, nuts, the acid and hot temperature foods. I tried the applesauce. It was a little sour, I guess, for my mouth, and it was a little uncomfortable. Biggest thing before surgery, going to my parents and stuff, I wanted to make sure that I turned up my air conditioning at my apartment so that way I wasn't wasting any electricity there. I went grocery shopping to make sure I had all the essentials I needed and I wasn't relying on anybody. I cleaned my home so that way I didn't have to go back to a dirty home. And of course, just like I said, taking that shower so I could recover and just focus on that. Another big thing is moistening your gauze pads. It was still uncomfortable to have them in the first place. After you put them in, it takes a little bit to get used to being in there. But moistening them up made it a little less difficult, and just make sure that you take your gauze pads out carefully. This is so you can see I did get a little more swollen and definitely a little red from talking. Okay, so I'm clearly feeling a lot better and I'm back to mainly normal. I'm about 90% or so normal. It is officially my 12th day or so. This is how I'm feeling. It's great. Still having a little bit of complications. It is taking me a little longer than it typically does for people. As far as my research, it's usually 3 days is the worst, and then there's, up to a week maybe with all the little things. But currently what I'm facing is the holes are starting to close up. I'm getting some healing, which is great. It's all doing really well. I went into the dentist 2 days ago just to get a really quick cleanup. I had some food, and food has been starting to get lodged in the holes as I start eating a little bit more normal foods like soft baked pizzas or pastas, stuff like that. Not anything crunchy at this time. I won't be able to eat anything like steak or probably another week or so. But I am getting some food stuck in there, so they did clean it out and they said everything's healing good. But what I am needing to do is they gave me a plastic syringe that has a little curve on the end so you can get right in the hole, and you can squeeze salt water into that hole and it will, pop out any food that gets stuck in there. So that's good. It is a little uncomfortable still. It is a little sore if I do start eating and the food gets back there and it, hits the gums, then it's sore. Also, my glands are swollen. This one right now is, this one a few days ago was. So it's just little things here and there that are still kind of bothering me, but all in all, doing really well. Having the medications, I did stop after 7 days. The ibuprofen I use here and there, just if I have any uncomfortable feelings and I have to be talking a lot that day or something. I did end up trying the narcotic on the maybe third night, I think, because my mom wanted me to try it to see. Of course, it'll be a stronger medication, so we thought it would be more helpful when I go to sleep because I wasn't sleeping very well. And unfortunately, I did wake up that night because the ibuprofen lasts for 8 hours, but the narcotic only lasts for 4 hours. So I ended up waking up in the middle of that night with some really bad pain. The worst pain, honestly. It might have been the same as the first day, but of course I had some numbing, so I think it was the worst pain. I don't think that was from the narcotic. I think it's just once those medications are out of my system, they obviously, all the pain comes back. So I woke up in the middle of the night and I had to retake another one. After that, it did clear all of the pain away. There was just a little bit of the tension left. So it worked a little better, but not much different than the ibuprofen in my opinion. So I didn't decide to take those. Being a narcotic, I just don't want any kind of risk. So in case you don't know, when you get rid of a narcotic, any kind of thing that you can get addicted to, definitely put it down the drain, water, garbage disposal. The ibuprofen I'm just gonna keep in case I need it for any time afterwards. When I went into the dentist, he used that mouth rinse to rinse out my wounds, but he said to just use salt water now. So I just got rid of it. Another thing that I researched and I saw was kind of a thing was getting bruising afterwards. My boyfriend noticed that I had a little bit of a yellow bruise right around here. I didn't feel it. I didn't know it was there. It lasted a few days. I think it's gone now completely. Really hard to notice, obviously, in the light. It wasn't very dark. I don't know why that spot particularly. That was kind of the area where it was mainly numbed. So I don't know if maybe they did something in that area, held up my mouth or something that caused some bruising. Okay, so a few other things to note is I did end up getting nauseous probably 4th night, 7th night or so. I was getting nauseous just because I really wasn't eating well. I was being very malnourished, I was dehydrated, I wasn't eating very much because it started to hurt. And another thing too was when I would start to eat, that's when it would start getting the most irritated, I guess moving the jaw, but I just powered through it and kept eating and it would go away. Having the nausea obviously was not great, but I worked through it, just making sure I ate more, had more protein, had more water. It was a little uncomfortable for me still. I think my mouth was just very sensitive. I have very little space in my mouth to have the wisdoms. That's why they probably didn't come out. There's not a lot of space, so even when I look in there to rinse anything out, it's very hard. So not having that space, I think, just made it a little bit harder for my mouth to heal from it. So it took me a little bit longer than I had expected. So after the recovery process of the first main days, I started, of course, brushing my teeth. Slowly, a few days later, I would start adding the toothpaste, just taking everything really slowly and brushing my teeth. Of course, I just tried to not get too close to the extraction points, and I slowly get closer and closer every day and just realize my pain tolerance. If it starts to hurt too much, I move back inwards. But some other things that really bothered me was I loved having tomato soup and saltine crackers. When they break up and they become moist, saltine crackers actually are more dense, I guess, than oyster crackers, so they actually soak up a lot quicker. It felt like normal food, so it was really nice for me, but the acid in it definitely was uncomfortable. I can have a little bit more heat now. I can have a little bit more of the lime or lemon or something, and that doesn't bother me too much, but tomatoes specifically seem to be special that make it a little bit more uncomfortable. So I kind of avoided that afterwards. I'm still kind of iffy on eating them. And things like cold items, cold water, ice creams really irritated it more than a hot thing would. So it's probably why in my research it would show starting with cold compresses at the beginning because of the swelling, but once that's all done, a few days later, you move to hot, heat pads. And I actually put rice into a sock, if you don't know that trick, warm it up in the microwave for 30 seconds to a minute, and it's nice and warm. It felt really good. Days, even a week after the surgery, anytime it was a little uncomfortable, that can help you reduce how much medicine you have to take too, if that helps you. So to describe the pain a little bit, roughly on the 3rd to 7th day, the pain that I was feeling was mainly all on the bottom, probably because that's moving your jaw. And I may be a baby about this. This is just my pain tolerance and my experience, so of course take it with a grain of salt, know your body the best. But for the pain that I was feeling, it started to feel like when you take a bite out of an ice cream scoop and it's just your whole bottom teeth freeze, and it's kind of that irritating, almost like leg asleep kind of irritating discomfort, and it felt like that in all of my teeth really. The contracted side was worse for the most part. Now this one is kind of the more painful one, since having to start the salt rinses and everything with the syringe, I have to open my mouth more because, like I said, it's not a lot of space. So I have to open my mouth kind of wide, and of course going to the dentist I had to have my mouth open, so it's a little bit more painful on this side, but it's very minimal pain. So it's not anything it's stopping me from living my life. I'm going out, I'm doing things, I'm just taking my own food to places, making sure to eat soft things that I can mainly just swallow, not having any ground beef or little meats that get stuck in the holes. Of course, you can always eat that stuff, you just have to make sure to keep it clean. But I wanted to make sure just to be very careful. I don't want bad breath or anything. I'm a very hygienic person, so it irks me to have it in there. You do feel when it's in there, it feels different. Kind of like when you have food stuck in your teeth. For me, food stuck in the teeth, because my teeth are so crooked that when they get lodged in there, it's painful. Like, I can feel it's there, it's something in the way. It's not the best diet, it's not the best tasting for me. I like crunchy foods and spicy and acidic and stuff like that, but it works. I mean, it's something that I'm just suffering a little bit so that way I can have the best experience afterwards. But I'm very excited to have this done so that way I can start working on getting Invisalign or whatever to straighten up my teeth and not have to worry about not liking my teeth anymore. For a long time, I would not smile with my teeth. I would only smile with my mouth closed. Hopefully, I can get all of that situated in the next year or so, and I will share that as well. So just make sure that you take care of yourself after this. It is a journey for sure, and I hope that you have a better experience, of course, than I did most of the time. You do. It wasn't anything that I wouldn't recommend if you need to get it done. It's not anything that you can't conquer. You are strong. You can absolutely do it. It's just a little bit of sacrifice for having it taken care of. Love yourself, and I hope that this video gives you all of the insight that you need. Those first few days, definitely rest, be in bed. You're gonna feel like a normal person. At least I did. I felt very normal, like mentally, physically. I was pretty fine, besides a little bit of nausea or fatigue. But otherwise, you feel pretty normal. It's just the numbness or the pain here. Just making sure to rest and let your body heal and take care of yourself.